Hey everyone, welcome to the Good and Head podcast. Today I've got Colter Smith on. He's a breathwork specialist, and the discussion that we had was just incredible. It's a mind-blowing set of topics, and I really think you're going to love it. Enjoy. As always, like, subscribe, and share with everyone. The logarithm will be affected, and we can reach a lot more people that way. Also, please visit www.goodinthehead.com. It's a ton of stuff on the website. Just click on the menu and go to town. There's a lot of fun things on there. I've also got a lot of books that are published by me on Amazon that are available, and you can get those links at the website. Thank you so much for your support. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode on the Good in the Head podcast. Today, my guest is Colter Smith. I know him because we met a few weeks ago at the Arizona Psychedelic Society conference, where he led a breathwork session um, right before the conference started in the morning on the grass out on the lawn under the trees. It was just a beautiful morning. And before we dive into his story and what he does, I wanted to share that experience briefly. Uh, we showed up a little early and got a good spot with our mats, and my wife and I and some friends were there for the conference. And we were like, "Oh, cool, breathwork session. Let's check it out." And so we laid down and didn't really know what to expect. And I usually do breath work for like anywhere from 12 to 20 minutes. I've done box breathing for years to relieve anxiety and then different breath work methods, but I had never done anything quite like this. It was interesting. He started out by saying, "Okay, everyone, today we're going to do an hour and 15-minute long breath session." And I was like, "Wait, what? Oh my God, an hour and 15 minutes, man, that's a while." And then this is just what I was thinking. I didn't like complain or anything, but then I remembered my intention for the day was like, hey, I just want to be present and experience this fully, right? So Calder started playing some music and we all closed our eyes, and it was a guided breathwork session that lasted about 3 minutes. It was over so fast. And I was like, wait, what just happened? Can we keep going? And throughout the whole breathwork session, I kept my eyes closed, and my wife and I would hold hands every once in a while. But I noticed halfway through my eyes were leaking. I wasn't crying or sobbing or anything, but it was some kind of a somatic release that just happened. And I was like, well, that's weird. I don't feel like I'm crying or anything. And the interesting thing about the breath work is that I started having these visions throughout it, and my body started tingling everywhere. And even afterwards, our friends and I were talking, and we're like, "Did you feel that? Like my whole body was tingling." It was just such an incredible experience. So as we go along, I want to know more about why that was, and all the natural ways that we can sort of use to access deeper levels of spirituality and higher levels of consciousness and eternal expansion. So, Coulter, I'm so excited to have you on today. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Pete. That's a great intro, and I'm very glad that you shared what happened to you as just an intro to move into even deeper and greater topics. It's amazing, right? I always tell people in breathwork classes, you lie down, you breathe, and magic happens. And we'll go into the details, the intricacies, but it is so powerful. It is so beautiful. It can be transcendent. It can break patterns of traumas and healing, and it can awaken you. My tagline is awaken to your infinite self. And it's this idea that there's a deeper part of us that is there, always accessible. It is us, but we maybe have lost it, forgot to connect with it, and I teach people to go back into that space. And what I like about breath work, sound, meditations done properly and all that, you can get there quickly. And if you have like 2 hours, like let's go in, you could be in the transcendent states, seeing, feeling, experiencing transpersonal states beyond the ordinary. That's my fascination. And that's where I kind of just light up. So a little bit of background of me, we can go into the details of 10, 20 years ago, but I've been doing meditation, energy style classes, and breathwork based technically since 2009, breathwork based for about 12 years, done over 700 events, retreats, you name it, with lots of different folks and different ways and different flows. And they give you the peak experiences that most people are looking for, especially your audience. Your audience is, how do we go into the psychedelic integration world? How do we like deal with the egoic challenges of life? How do we get the source of creation, whatever you call that, more embodied in our frequency? So this whole path took me down 20 years now almost of metaphysics, quantum physics, learning about many different spiritualities and philosophies, a little bit of religion here and there, and then a whole host along the way. I had personal experiences and whatnot to kind of see, okay, we're only seeing, you know, 0.001 of the visible spectrum. We're kind of not told that there's too much out there. And unless you've done certain plant medicines or gone on deep retreats where you're doing initiation rites and whatnot, we don't really get to connect it to the sacred. And that's my deep desire in life is to connect to the sacred in myself and others, and to awaken and help others do the same. It's very fun. It's
Wow.
better than a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love it. And that explains why you were so good at the guided meditation. It was just incredible. You did such an excellent job. The playlist was phenomenal,
Mm.
and it just woke us all up in a way it's hard to describe, but it was so worth doing. It was amazing. What I'd like to do is kind of go back even further
Mhm.
to say your birth, your complete background and history, maybe some difficulties or challenges that you came up across, things you had to learn to navigate that were sort of the thing that propelled you into this work you're doing today and all of this research you've done over the years.
Perfect. I had a very good life, great family, living up in Montana in a small town, and I was an athlete, and I was really good at a really young age. And that was amazing and also very challenging to live up to expectations, hype. It's like everyone knew me, and there was no hiding.
Small
And
town, right?
yeah,
Kalispell said
Kalispell, yeah.
I used
And
to work with some guys on some drilling rig that were from there.
there you
Very
go.
cool guys.
So it was a great childhood, great growing up, but as far as it relates to how it came up to me, I was really good at sports, and around early in college, the pressure got to me, and it was really difficult to think and to breathe properly. And one time, the thing that stands out the most, I went on the court in college, and I started to massively hyperventilate within like a minute, and I was sweating, and I almost I felt like I was going to faint. It was awful, and it happened over and over within a minute. And I went to the trainer, and he basically said, "Oh, you're not breathing when you go out there." I'm like, "Not breathing? I'm breathing. I'm alive. What are you talking about?" And just I was profusely sweating and all that. Well, long story short with that was there was definitely performance anxiety and a lot of expectations. And I get on the court, and everything would just cave in on me in my mind and energy. Honestly, I couldn't handle it. And what I started to realize through that and a couple other experiences is like, oh, what happens when you can't uh, do life well, when there's anxiety, when there's expectations. And I physiologically was not helping myself out. I wasn't breathing. Back then I was working out for the muscles and not for the the good reasons of moving energy and chi and life force around. And I got really anxious and really challenging to handle emotions because I feel a lot. And I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that, the idea that you can be sensitive and it be your superpower.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of the quote unquote normal life of me up until about 20, and I'm 40 now. And at 20, I started to, through a series of events, meet these miraculous, incredible people. And there were some shamans, there's some mystics, some psychics, some sages, some normal people that just had an ability to connect. And I just was fascinated with that. So I dove all in. I started a radio show with some friends where we were talking about all the metaphysics. We started doing classes, hundreds of classes, where we call it meditation on steroids, where we would connect and go into these deeper states of consciousness. Because once you understand kind of how the brain body works and how mindset shift and set and setting, just like in the psychedelic world, you can go into much deeper states of consciousness. And I got super fascinated in that because one of my big things was if you have pain, if you have anxiety, suffering, depression, um, among many things, is like how do you remedy it, and how do you almost, I'm not gonna say get out of it, but how do you sometimes transcend it and go to deeper states to help you to heal and open up? That's where I got really interested in it. Then you fast forward to 2014 or 15, I always forget. I was doing a meditation class, and my mom's really good friend came up to me and she goes, "Have you ever done breath work?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." Like yoga breath work? She goes, "No, no, no, like real breath work." I'm like, "I don't know what that is." And she looked at me straight in the eyes, and it felt like God, spirit was talking to me. It was so crazy. She goes, "You need to teach breath work and you need to do it." And it just hit me. And it's like something just rattled inside of me. I didn't even know what that was, but I just remember the feeling going, whoa, that's weird. And it just hit me. So she gave me the CD called Quantum Light Breath. It was an amazing guy online. I did it, had a really good first experience, like you said, tingling, vibration, dissolving of mind, way deeper sense of presence and getting out of the monkey mind. And the second time I did it, I blasted off. And that's where it was like, oh my God, lights, colors, sensations. You start to feel yourself as pure energy and you can feel your connectedness. So the dissolving the barriers of the ego and your programs and all that, it can dissolve. So then all of a sudden you start crying and you go, I don't even know what I'm crying, but it feels good. Or you just, the thing is the second time, maybe the third time, I just started hysterically laughing
Mm.
because I could see like the shamanic world and whatnot, they talk about that Lila, the grand illusion, or Maya, it's a play, and we all take life too seriously. And when you're in those deep transformative spaces, you can kind of see through it all and go, oh, silly Coulter, you're being too serious. Like life is meant to be amazing. And, God's spirit is beyond everything, just smiling and laughing and saying, it's all love. It's absolutely all love. So that's touching the sacred. So I learned that personally, hired some breathwork coaches, did some trainings on my own, tried to figure out through many forms because of just holotropic, Stanlock Grob, rebirthing breathwork, get a little bit of here, a little bit of there. And then fast forward to the last 12 years, over 700 events. And it's just been a blessing, like an absolute blessing to hold space because not everyone's ready, and we can talk about this more, but when you are, you will have a peak experience. You will have something change. And there is a saying in the breathwork world, 2 years of therapy or 1 year of therapy in 2 hours, because you can go that deep. You can go so into your heart and into your spirit and come back to yourself and loving who you really are in that deep transcendent space. So that's a quick recap.
I love that. You covered quite a few different modalities of breath work, and there are a ton of them out there. Andrew Huberman talks about the baseline emotional reset breath, where you take a deep breath in and then fully expand on that second inhale and then blow slowly out, right? And do
Sure.
that 3 times, and you're like, ah, I feel so much better. What are all of the different types of breath work and the usefulness of each one? Let's do a quick review of that if we could.
Yeah, we'll start with the second one first. So the usefulness of each one, you got to think of it like this. Okay, a lot of people know biohacking now. So what is it? Like you're hacking your body to help it perform better. Or people are looking at self-improvement. You're looking to improve yourself. Why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this to have a better life, to have more passion, more love, more pleasure instead of pain or whatever. But most people either don't know how to do it or they're kind of lost and need a little direction. They kind of certain things work or whatever, but they need the right set and setting. So a breath work is the catalyst to everything. So it's not just breath work, it's meditation, it's getting in the right mindset, it's getting the right shift. So when you do certain types of breath work, they elicit physiological responses. So you're biohacking your inner pharmacy. And you're basically just like the yogis taught in pranayama for 10, 20, or for 200, 2,000 years or 10,000 years or whatever. Oh, we're in a human body meat suit, but it's the most incredible machine, if you want to call it that, but much more than that. But it's an organism that, when used properly with consciousness and in communication with your psyche, your inner self, your subconscious, you can go into those deeper states of awareness for healing, transcendence, just straight up stress relief. I do a lot of
Mhm.
corporate breath work, and they don't want to see colors and go into the light or whatever. They just want to de-stress. So there's levels to it. So and it's super fascinating. So you can have the little levels of, I'm just going to slow my breathing and create what's called coherent breath, get the parasympathetic and sympathetic working, activate the vagus nerve, release oxytocin, get more into maybe an alpha wave state. And it's amazing because your body's going to slowly detox. It's going to pump the lymph system. It's going to get a little more alkaline. There's more, but there's that. And then there's all the way to, we're going to do this as a ceremony and as a journey. And I think this is the most exciting thing for your audience is you can fully have a psychedelic experience without ingesting anything. And some people believe, I believe, dimethyltryptamine, the spirit molecule, it's in our body. It gets released out of the pineal gland when we do certain breath works. Joe Dispenza is making it really famous with his supernatural breathing, where you basically take the energy that you would use to create a child, a baby, you bring it up the spine and you activate the piezoelectric parts of your brain, the chemicals, and it activates this higher transcendent state, usually through theta waves. That's one form. So the going into the deep shamanic or just journeying base is, you can have the full psychedelic experience. And like you said, that hour and 15, we breathed heavy for about, I think it was 45 minutes, but it's called relativity states. Relativity means 2 hours seems like 20 minutes if you're in the flow state. So it's not, a lot of these breathwork spaces, they will, one of the big themes is you get into the flow. Time stands still. You're ultra present. You shut off the monkey mind. There's been a lot of people that just start crying in breathwork, and you ask them later if they want to share, and they say, my mind shut up. My mind was actually quiet. It wasn't attacking me. That's a huge
Mhm.
thing. So
Mhm.
different types of breath work, Wim Hof, the Iceman, made breath super famous, and he's my favorite for just a quick hit. You do 30 rounds, belly to chest, and then you exhale and hold, and you create oxygen CO2 levels changes, and you go into intermittent hypoxic states. Well, that has a major benefits. And then you have box breathing, like you said, where you're in for 4, let's say, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. It gets the body to go into its natural rhythms. And that's one of the things that I preach in these classes that I've learned is the thinking mind, you don't have to know what happens and why it happens. You just have to know that the body, through the breath and through your intentions, will find balance. It will find homeostasis and it will heal. So a lot of these breath works are for that. So Nadi Shodhana is alternate nostril breathing. It's to get the left and right parts of the body to, I'm not an expert on this, but the other left and parts of the body to work properly. Then my favorite is conscious connected breath work. It's circular breathing, um, and you create a rhythm of flow, belly up to chest through the diaphragm. Because when you pump the diaphragm, there's a whole host of benefits with that as well. But it cohesively moves your breath in a rhythm, and then you find these deep flow states. You equalize inhalations and exhalations, so your body learns how to tolerate proper oxygen, CO2, and that's when you get all the tingles. So you get the life force flows, and it's intense for almost everyone because that's them tapping into their vibration. If you go in the quantum physics space, everything's vibration. And so then you get into either deeper ones like holotropic breathwork and rebirthing, who were very popular in the 60s, 70s or so, which I got a side story if you want to talk about that.
Mhm.
And those are the ones where, sometimes you're breathing for an hour, 2 hours, depending upon the style, and you'll go into different dimensions of consciousness. You'll go live your birth. You'll go into The very non-ordinary states of beyond what we perceive as normal reality. That happens all the time because you're finding this deeper spaces. Your body is letting go, and there's a thing called somatic release. So the soma, the body, the energy, it starts to unravel. And everyone has trauma. We all have programs, conditioning. When you do breath work specifically, or just surrendering, just setting an intention and surrender, you breathe and you circulate, your body will go through this cathartic release, and you'll have tension, you'll have old emotions, you'll have so much move. And even in the psychedelic world, you've heard of epigenetics before.
Hmm.
Um, it kind of will, hard to explain, but it'll happen. It's like an old trauma that's from your mom or from a past, it seems to release or not be there, or at least you give it grace or some forgiveness to continue the process of unraveling. And you can have those psychosomatic releases within minutes sometimes, if not within the hour session. So all these different breathwork experiences elicit different responses. It depends on where you want to go and how deep you want to go, but it's ultra fascinating. And I go back to the intention of the set and setting in the psychedelic world. You set the right intention, the right setting, absolute magic will happen. And that's, once again, a huge passion of mine. Find the sacred through these transformative experiences.
You spoke of Wim Hof briefly, and I've seen him on quite a few specials on other Gaia, Netflix, all these different things, and YouTube. Tons of information about Wim Hof out there, but he was using breath work for a certain amount of time, and he had to have the doctors literally inject him with toxins and poisons and diseases.
Yep.
And within minutes, they would draw the blood, and they all knew that they were going to find this toxin taking over, and it wasn't even present in his blood. And he was then able to teach, like, I think it was 9 or 10 other people to do the same thing. They injected them with the same toxins or diseases, Ebola, all these things, and nothing. So what is that about? It's just epigenetics turning on and off gene expression. Uh, that's like miraculous. That's crazy. It's not something you come across every day.
It's unreal. And like I said, he's the biggest, in my opinion, he's probably the one that's pushed breathwork the most, just because the cold exposure and doing what you said. And he's basically, in a nutshell, proving that you can control your own autonomic nervous system. You can consciously control it through breath, visualization, you name it. You're not a victim to your environment and surroundings. So that can be deal with epigenetics and all that too. But unbelievably fascinating. You inject something in your body that's supposed to hurt you, and he goes and sits in ice and breathes or whatever, and then it's not there. It's like, and he proved it in medical studies. It just shows that the physical body is so much more capable than we realize. But then you go, okay, it's, yes, it's the physical body, but in the quantum world, psychedelic world, or whatever, we have the emotional body, we have the mental mind body, we have the causal body, which is really deep, where we hold karmic slash energies that might go beyond this time and space. I'm fascinated by that. So I've been learning about that for 20 years. But it teaches you to go like, okay, we can hack this and we can transcend it. We can be the creator of our own reality and have this biome and environment like Wim Hof did, to say you're not a victim. You can breathe, feel, heal, and you will survive and thrive in this environment. It's fascinating. Like he climbed Mount Everest with shorts on, no shirt, no shoes or whatever. It's insane.
That is, then I've heard many stories about some of the Buddhist monks that would sit there in a snowstorm with just their robes on, and they would soak them in water and generate so much heat through meditative work and breath work that it would dry this robe. You could see the steam rising off of them, and they could sit for hours or all day long out in the snowstorm, perfectly warm, no problem.
Yep, that's mostly Tuomo breath, Tuomo, Tuomo. James Nestor, the author of Breath, he created have you heard that book yet? It's
No.
a very famous book. Super recommend it. James Nestor Breath. He goes into that as well, and he's like, that's like, in my opinion, the best book on, all right, what the heck is actually happening in the body, and he references those people where they'll just sweat and they got a pool of there's snow everywhere, but around them there's nothing because it melted. And it's the internal heat in your body learning to move it, moving to transcend it and transform it. Amazing.
Bruce Lipton is a cellular biologist, and I
Mhm.
love listening to his work, but he talks about how each of the 7 trillion cells that make up the human body have a certain amount of voltage.
Mhm.
And within the human body, therefore, there's what, millions, trillions of volts available, energetically and vibrationally within us, each person. And that's a little mind-blowing when you think about it. But I want to go back to did you say pranayam is the energy that comes up through uh, the spine, and some people experience like a Kundalini awakening. Um, the energy that we actually are. I once saw a toroidal field that started
Mhm.
within and went without and just kept circulating. And they're now measuring energy expanded out of the human body like 15, 20 feet, right?
Yep.
And I always thought, well, maybe we're not this little spirit crammed into this body having a human experience. Maybe the body's surrounded by our actual true self, the energy that we are, the divine eternal, whatever you want to call it, that animates this human experience for some experiential learning. And I really want to get into the flow of that energy and how breath work unlocks it and expands it, and some of the results that come into our human life experience through doing this breath work.
Beautiful. Yeah, have you ever heard of Heart Math Institute?
Yes.
They've like proved even a while ago that the heart has its own radiance, its own energetic field, and it goes really far out, like really far out. And horses have a big one, and we all have a if you don't like the term aura, we have a biofield. We are a toroidal torus field based on my 20 years of learning that thousands of years ago the yogis knew about this. So if you reference pranayama, pranayama in my opinion it's that's like the term for breath work in a sense to go deep inside. So I like to reference yoga because yoga is union in the path of the divine or path within or yoking or whatever. There's different forms of yoga. But the first three steps in like Patanjali's Yoga Suit, the 8 limbs of yoga that's really famous is number one, you do the physical asana, is you get your body primed to move energy, calm the nervous system, secretes a lot of chemicals, hormones to get you in a deeper state. Second is pranayama, which is breath work in many forms. But what it is preparation for meditation. And the third is you go into meditation, and from there you go into deeper spaces, and it goes much deeper. But the breath work itself, it can go into I'll call them meditative states because that's the transformative. It calms the rhythms of the mind and body to go into this coherent space so you can access more of your subconscious and superconscious state. So here's an interesting, amazing thing. When you breathe, or just life in general, but breath work, it helps. But did you know that the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between an actual thought and a real experience? And when we breathe, this is fascinating. This is a little medical, but there's a thing called the default mode network. It's our beta wave. It's the beta waves that we're basically all in at almost all the time. Most of us are in beta. When we breathe correctly, it shuts off. It's called transient hyperfrontality. Super crazy word. What happens? You go into alpha and theta and sometimes gamma waves. What does that mean? You're accessing your subconscious. Well, 95% or more of our reality is subconscious, that we don't even have a clue what's going on. It's old programs, conditioning, past patterns, maybe even beyond this life. So when you do breath work, you can access deeper states of reality. Now it goes back, now we go into your question of, let's say, Kundalini, energy, life, or slow, many paths to that. So in like the yoga world, there's like bhakti yoga of call and response to open up your heart and have a lover, a beloved through the sacred, through God, source, and you teach Shaktipat, Shiva, or Shiva Shakti, divine Kundalini energy, masculine, feminine, lots of ways of putting it, of coming up into your body, some people through the base of your spine, merging with the heart, bridging heaven and earth. And it's like, I like to think of it as source literally making love through you and expressing. So people will potentially have Kundalini awakening experiences on breath work or meditation. Sometimes it's not even need to be powerful, and sometimes it happens super spontaneously. And we can get a whole big thing of Kundalini because you have to do it properly, you have to be grounded, it can elicit some psychosis. Like if done improperly, it can be quite dangerous. But when you're in a breathwork setting and a meditation, you feel good, you'll feel those energies and you're in that theta wave or gamma wave state. You're feeling your life force flowing and it's unencumbered. So your ego doesn't catch on to it. So you let energy flow. What's the probably the universal, I'm not going to say truth, but close to the universal truth of almost every religion or every spirituality that says, how do you, what's the best path towards like transcendence, awakening, enlightenment? It's to surrender. It's to surrender and let go and to trust something greater than you, hope, faith, whatever. That's what the Kundalini life force needs. It needs you to feel safe and to be trusting so the energy can flow. And normally, what people think is like energy is going to just awaken and it's going to explode because you've heard the stories. That can happen, but rare. But mostly, what it's doing when you're in those deep spaces is it's burning away what isn't love, what isn't balance. So you get into the chakras or you get into just different parts of your body where it needs to flow energy properly. And if you're stuck in your ego or whatever, maybe the energy might not go to the heart because you haven't mastered unconditional love. So a lot of the Kundalini energy is heart awakening. And it's basically saying, okay, I'm not working from the root or the sacral energies, the survival, all that energy. I'm moving towards love, which is unconditional, and you ultimately have to love yourself. So this energy is alive in everybody. It's just a matter of how we connect through Tai Chi, through meditation, through breath, through nature, because we are, like you said, the biofield. You go and ground in earth with your feet down, connect your intentions to the sun, do some breath work. You'll feel your energy just like woo, expanding, and you'll feel it inside, outside of you. So this consciousness for exploration is like never ending. And that's why so many people use it to go to the divine, go to the deeper spaces. Once again, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, wow. Um, a lot of people come to breath work out of necessity. They've tried a lot of other things. They're still depressed, anxious, hopeless. They got suicidal ideation going on, and all of a sudden, breath work opens them up to a new reality, kind of. Um, what are some of the results that a lot of your clients have experienced, and how has that helped them in their lives? Like, why would anybody want to do breath work?
Extremely good question. And it's super varied. So come 10 times, you have 10 different experiences.
Mhm.
So we never know what's going to happen, but you can still have an intention. Most people over the last 12 years, they come for one of two reasons. They come for healing, like they need some sort of healing, or they're looking for a transcendent experience slash like, hey, I heard about this and I want to go in deeper in meditation. So people will come for those reasons alone. And when I say healing, that's very multifaceted.
Mhm.
So the somatic releases, the trauma releases, like I think of this story a lot. And did you ever read the book The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle?
Yes.
Do you remember when like he saw the ducks fighting and then they turned away and they shook and everything and he was realizing that, oh, the animal kingdom, they go fight, they or whatever, they squabble, they go away and then both of them shake the energy off. Well,
Yeah.
humans aren't taught to do that. So we internalize, we hold energy frequencies and they
Mhm.
become part of our psyche, literally part of our body system or whatever. Breathwork is a way to break that open. And it's a way to actually feel in a healing space. So once again, if you feel safe, if you feel supported, if you feel loved, you can breathe, activate energy, stuck emotions, old traumas, and you can free them. Once again, it's not conscious sometimes, if not all. It can be. it's deeper parts of you saying, "Oh, this biosystem, this organism is ready to feel what needs to be felt."
Mm.
So that's another thing, is to feel what needs to be felt. It's to let go, and it's to help you understand that we have an ego, we have this mind that is always chattering, that is not our friend a lot of times, and it creates a lot of pain and suffering. So breathwork is meditation on steroids, in my opinion. So when you go into these deeper spaces, you can see it for what it is. You can see the ego when it's a tyrant. You can see it when it's trying to force your reality because it wants to keep you safe. Good and bad, but if you're a slave to that, you can't get out of it. So people will come, even knowingly or unknowingly, of how do I control my mind? How
Mm.
do I not get my mind to attack me? How do I go into these like loving spaces that I know are there and you can feel them? And especially in a group setting, there's always an energy to the room, to the group. So the space creates a healing, awakening, and letting go. Some breath work, some of my breath works, we allow cathartic releases of laughing, crying, making sounds, and that can sometimes help others to do the same. And I've done breathworks where you're crying, and then all of a sudden a ex-girlfriend from 6 years ago comes to your mind, and you realize you're still sad because of it. But I never released it. And breathwork allows it because it's so much deeper. And then you go into the why would people do a breathwork journey, music, sound, and go on a 1, 2 hour journey. Um, I the transcendent spaces is my favorite, and that's where it's like, oh, I want to like get visions. I want to get intuition, because think about it like this: when you're doing the deep breathing, change the alpha waves, theta waves, gamma waves. You're in your subconscious mind. You're super present. Your mind's not attacking you. Well, guess what you have access to? You have access to your intuition, to your gut instinct, to your deeper you that says, "Okay, Pete, you should probably do this instead of that," because we shut off the ego mind to attack us. So you can go in for insights and intuition. That happens in even like business-based settings where people like, I had a business idea, or I just knew what needed to happen.
Mm.
Then go into the spiritual side. This is where it gets out there, but this is probably the most fascinating side. You go to breathwork to have this potentially deep transformative journey, and you are seeing things that are beyond the waking state. You're feeling, you are having communications, potentially old lost relatives. That's happened hundreds and hundreds of times. Or you're connected to the source itself. You are feeling the river of love that is always there. And I can tell you hundreds of stories of people connecting to I call it just God source, their self, getting like full blown communications, like full blown, this is what I need to do. I felt it. It's not for me to say if it was real or not. It doesn't matter. In the subconscious mind, it thinks it's real, and it's beautiful. Last thing I'll say on this question is you might not want to go to breathwork for this per se, but it gets you a lot. Breathwork is triggering, and not for everyone, but for most. Who hates the ego, or who hates breathwork is the ego. And you come to a class and you like can't shut off your mind. You think this is silly, this is stupid. You think of cheeseburgers all the time. You don't want to go there because breathwork is breath work. Your ego will freak out. And you either have to keep going or you sit in your pain. You hear somebody next to you shouting or crying, and it really triggers you. And you got to feel what needs to be felt. Some aren't ready for that. But when you go and you realize, wow, I always say breathwork is incredible, but it can trigger you. And guess what? That's a good thing in this space because it's safe to feel. Kind of like the eye of the hurricane. All the trauma, everything moves, but you're safe and you're in the eye, it's all there. So people will say, I was, crying from a past experience, but I felt peace at the same time. It's like paradoxical unity in Taoism. It's like everything is there all at once. That is just fascinating to go into those quantum spaces and to be able to heal from these deeper levels, which Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and all those people are proving it's all real if we can connect to it.
Yes, I agree. That is incredible. It's a really great way to put it. Um, uh, Years ago, I had a severe back injury that left me immobile for about 3 months. I couldn't walk or move, couldn't even crawl to the bathroom. It was a horrible experience. And I, to this day, don't know what happened. It was probably just a ruptured disc or something. I don't know. But I was holding on to a lot of repressed rage and emotions, anxieties from my entire life. And at this point, I was in my 20s. And eventually it came to the point where the doctors, many of them would just say, look, go on disability, you're screwed, you'll never get better.
Whoa.
So I was like, well, crap. It was really scary. Now, fast forward all these years later, I come across the work of Johnny Sarno, who was a pain specialist in New York for 49 years and never used Western medications for his
Mhm.
work, but yet had over a 98% full recovery rate for his patients.
What did he do?
Right? I had to buy the books. The one's called Back Pain. I listened to these books. They were about 20 hours each. And his whole premise was about the life energy that goes up the spine and gets blocked. If you're sore in the shoulders or the neck area, it's a repressed voice, like you
Mhm.
never got to speak your truth or you couldn't say things you wanted to because of expectations projected upon you by others. If your lower back is hurting, it had to do with, you're carrying the weight of the world and it's just compacting and compressing and balling up that energy, allowing it to not more, it doesn't flow through the spine anymore and out into that toroidal sphere and
Yeah.
you're unexpressed, you're not really whole, you're damaged. And that energy will get blocked and manifest as physical pain.
Mhm.
Well, I started doing the inner work and writing and journaling and breath work and all these things that he was suggesting in his book. And I've been literally pain free for a couple of years now. And I do deadlifts and squatting at the gym
Wow.
now, and I'm like, I never thought I would do that again. I was told at one point, you'll never really walk again.
Mm.
And that's terrifying. But to know that the human body knows exactly what to do to heal. All you've got to do is let go and let flow, and just be and allow the body to do its thing. That's really empowering information that I don't think the Western medical industrial complex wants humans to have. They want to
Yeah.
push the pills. They're making trillions of dollars a year on all these pills and cures that make you take more pills because of the side effects.
Yeah.
And then you come back to breath work and you're like, wait a minute, there's this free, easy, natural way that I can allow my body to heal and do its thing without me bombarding it with all these chemicals and hormones that are actually destroying my physical body. I mean,
Yes.
this is our temple, right? So why not
Super
do
well
everything
said.
for it that we can?
Yeah, you said it really well, and it's so fascinating. There's so much. It's like when you have a oxygen-rich alkaline environment, a lot of people think that certain, I'm not going to say words, but certain things can't survive there. And the guy that you're referencing, the back pain, might be the same guy, but I read this thing where his whole premise, he has books on it too. He says, you don't have back pain, you have emotional pain.
Hmm.
And that was the whole premise.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see. So it's all the same thing and different ways of moving your flow and activating your energy and life force. It's hacking who you are from God's biology that was given to you. It's unreal.
When my wife and I reconnected, it was about 11 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we started doing yoga at the
Mhm.
gym. And she was like, I don't want to do yoga. This is stupid. And she'd never done it. And I invited her to come to a class with me. And immediately, um, towards the end of the class, we were both sobbing. We were in tears. And we were like,
Oh,
what's that about? And she goes, I wasn't expecting that. And I go, yeah, me either. But let's keep doing it. So like once or twice a week, we'd go to yoga class for years. And through the yoga classes, we would do all these different poses and we would realize that we need to breathe in certain ways at certain times. And it was that breath work that was allowing our energy to flow. We were letting go of so much. And you're focused on this one thing, this one yoga pose and your breath. That's all. And the mind clears completely. It just, everything goes away. All the worries, the stress, all the repetitive looping thoughts that are so damaging sometimes to us as humans. And we were realizing that, oh my gosh, yoga class, breath work, we're actually becoming better humans. We started communicating better, being kinder, and all these things transpired for years afterwards. And we just started saying, well, what else is there? What else can we learn
Yeah.
to do? It's so exciting. And so coming across your work, I was just like, I was mind blown, man. I was like,
Mm,
this is for real, man.
yeah.
It is so exciting.
And going back to the whole psychedelic world that a lot of your listeners are, you can have those full experiences and go, this is mind blowing. It's something to be said when you do it just totally consciously with nothing, and you go, oh, it's all within me. Or like I've been there before on a plant medicine journey. Well, you can recreate it. You can absolutely recreate those sensations, and sometimes, not always, but I've heard it many times, it's more powerful because you're part of it. It's like symbiotic. It's interfacing with consciousness in this way that is just different and more powerful. And breath is everything. It's like yoga, it's more than just stretching, right? It's so much more. Breath is so much more. So you go back to the question, why would anybody do anything like this? Why would they come to one of my classes or listen to Wim Hof talk or Joe Dispenza or whoever talk about breath work? Well, if you master breath, you master reality because it's the gateway. If you're having an argument with a spouse or you're trying to communicate in the boardroom, some point across, you don't have your breath, just like I didn't back in the day when I was playing college basketball. Good luck. Your ego's going to attack you. Your nervous system is going to go nuts. You're going to go into fight or flight. You're going to go into all the programming and all the reasons for failure or whatever. If you can stop and breathe, you can be less reactive. You can have the gap, the idea of a lot of different like Eastern philosophies, it's to create the mindfulness between the thought and the actual action. So, the thoughts are never going to stop. But if you have a thought, mindfulness into action says, oh, actually, I want to do this. Well, if you don't have the nervous system for it, it doesn't really work because you're just going to go on autopilot usually. Breath work allows you to have those spaces to think, to heal, and go into coherent breathing and go, okay, coherent breathing is usually like they usually say like 5 to 6 inhale for 5 to 6 through the nose, exhale 5 to 6 out the mouth. It's usually what it is. But you're going, okay, it's like 6 breaths a minute. And people go, I can't do that. Like, what? 6 breaths? You do that for 3 minutes or so, you go, oh yeah, it's super possible. But the physiological changes that happen, I'm a little bit calmer. Like you said in yoga, I'm a little bit, nicer, or I'm a little bit happier. And it just builds because it gives you a pathway to say, I want to be better human. I want to be better at life. I want to be better communicator. You name it. Good luck without breath.
Yeah, yeah. Good luck living without breath,
Yeah.
right? So going back to people getting triggered in the sessions, I've been publishing a series of books called Beyond Triggers, and the first one was all about the ego identifying triggers and all the different spiritual, somatic, the physical, the breath work that goes along with each of the chapters is really fun and it's useful. Some of the other books talk about relationship triggers, like what gets you going, like what makes you so upset that you just can't calm down and you just rage for days, and how can we move through that and then begin to realign ourselves with source and with the energy and the flow that we truly are and be in love rather than fear or anxiety. Um, there's there's a lot of different ways to integrate what we learn and apply it into our lives that will help us to just human better, right? And have better experiences and then project the energy field of love outwards. And then through the law of attraction or whatever you want to call it, we sort of attract the people, the situations, the circumstances, the things into our lives that are in alignment with the vibrational energies we're outputting. And when we're in a state of peace and calm, serenity, and we're grounded solidly in who we truly are, rather than the ego identity of, I got to prove myself in certain ways to feel like you're worthy of love or worthy of money that comes in or anything like that. Life gets really interesting. Um, what are some ways that you would suggest that people integrate things from what they learn through their spiritual experiences into their lives and up level and upgrade every aspect of their lives?
Dang, great deep question. I'm going to keep it as simple as possible over 20 years of learning that works for me, that I'm still, learning and doing. And
Yeah.
the theme, it basically is you have the real you and you have the false you. And you got to figure out which one's different. And whether that's through a psychedelic journey, through a breath work, through meditation, you kind of go, oh, this voice is the ego tyrant. It's always about chaos, division, separation. And you always have the voice of love, reasoning, oneness. You got to differentiate that. So, because it's just like figuring out the what input and what's happening. And we can talk about why the ego is what it is and whatnot. But the question was kind of like, okay, how do you integrate and become a better person? You have to resonate, vibrate, slash have the embodiment blueprint of the love, the voice of love, the energy of love, and the connection with love. I'm using the word love, but it's soul, spirit, higher personality, God, you name it, as a part of yourself. And I'm not saying the ego is not, it's different. That's the false self. It's the conditioning pattern program. When you can go into those spaces, what I figured out, super simple. You give all the bad stuff, you give it to love. It's like as simple as that. And
Mm.
you go the other way, you're working on pains and traumas, going on through old loops, and it works and it doesn't. You create the memory again, and maybe you process, maybe you don't. That's a whole different subject. But if you can give it to a highest or higher enlightened aspect of you that can heal and transcend it, that's the healing. So people say, okay, it's my higher self. Okay, it's God. I'm going to give faith, hope, trust, surrender to the divine. If you don't like that, that's too pie in the sky out there. I'm going to give hope, faith. I'm going to give the faith and love to me, the deeper part of me that knows that there's love in there. And people over quickly, spontaneously, or over time, they learn to embody that as themselves. So if you go down, the easiest example that just pops in my head is you're driving, somebody goes across from you and cuts you. Your mind goes jerk, and then the second 2 seconds later, there's another voice maybe that's like, whoa, wait a sec, maybe he's whatever needed to be there. Have some compassion. Which one are you? You have to know who you are, period, to integrate. And if you say, I'm the voice of compassion, I'm the voice of love, you give the pain and suffering to that. And that's where spirituality and a lot of religions are really, really, really good. Because guess what? You are fallible. I'm fallible. I don't know what the heck I'm doing a lot of times. So what do? You give it to something greater than yourself. You say something, and one of my teachers, there's a guy named Jonathan Parker online that I just fell in love with. He's one of the greatest teachers ever. People want to reference him. He talks about calling and connecting. I give everything to the highest form of my soul, my enlightened self, to heal, transcend, move into different, deeper spaces of grace and harmony and peace. And you can think that that's wacky and out there, but here's the thing. Cognitive dissonance is real. Placebo effect is real. You're gonna heal 10 to 40% just on placebo alone. And the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between an actual thought and an experience. So might as well embody and incorporate that through the healing integration and say, well, it's hard sometimes, but I'll choose the love and be the love. I'll choose that space of healing and transcendence, even though it's scary. and I'm going to give everything else to something greater than me. Sort it out for me. God, Jesus, you name it, sort it out. Whatever works for you. That is so ultra powerful because it transcends beyond the ego state. So pretty sweet, huh?
Yeah, that's incredible. Melody Beattie just passed away this last year, and she wrote a book. She wrote a couple books, but the one that I'm going to reference is called The Language of Letting Go. And basically, it's just got a paragraph for each day of the year, and you just flip it open to the today's date and read the paragraph, and all of them are about letting go. And she integrates the 12 steps of, alcohol, narcotics, whatever, within the book because she had to grow through those addictions, and she realized through those years of work that she did that it was all just about letting go of everything we thought we had to be worthy of love or acceptance.
Mhm.
And she began to learn how to love and accept herself and just let everything else go. Like, I don't need you to love me or think about me any certain or particular way. I love me. I've got me. I don't need you. You're just a bonus in my life, and I choose you, kind of a thing. And
Hmm.
her books just awakened my mind to a new way of thinking. I started reading it back in 2014, and now I hand it around to everybody at work every day. And I'm like, this book changed my life, man. I got to share it. It's a wonderful way to shift perspectives into higher realms of thinking when you're caught up in distraction or when you're just really stressed out by something that's going on in your life or at work or in a relationship. This is just a couple minutes a day to reframe something in a positive way, in a positive light. And over the years, since 2014, when I got off of all those medications and mood stabilizers and antidepressants, and everything, and I started thinking, oh, I need to get good in the head or I'm dead. So then I created
Sure.
goodinthehead.com. And now through yoga, through meditation, cold plunges, breath work, all these other natural things that are easy to do and they're also easy not to do, I'm now working on getting good in the heart, right? So then we get the mind heart coherence going on and the ego work and the shadow work that's available to us in the human realm, and all these things. But where I want to transition to now in the discussion is the topic of consciousness. You met all these incredible people synchronistically. It seems like it all just unfolded perfectly to bring you to this one moment in time where you're helping so many people do these amazing things and see things and see themselves finally and remember who they truly are.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about consciousness. I know you've done some research on this topic.
Yeah, I have. And it is the rabbit hole of rabbit holes. Because once you get in like the quantum physics, it is so difficult to comprehend. And it's also beyond fascinating. And as we're moving to the AI quantum world, like a lot of this stuff is being revealed. Like we know that number one, we're multidimensional. There's different theories that basically say, you know, mathematically or quantifiably, we're up to 10, 11, 12 dimensions of the mind. We can access them. And the consciousness, I mean, I've read it feels like thousands of books and stuff now, but learning about what is consciousness, what is the game of life. That's where I kind of look at, okay, why would you even care about consciousness? Consciousness is like being consciously aware of your being. And in order to know that, it's like know thyself. So when you say, let's talk about consciousness, it's like, oh my God, where do we start? Let's talk about consciousness of the self, consciousness of deeper reality and the creation, and consciousness of why the hell are we here? And it all kind of formulates to go, okay, we're in some grand cosmic game. We're in a simulation slash, what's your verbiage? And we're trying to understand our self, which is love, which is the real self, and how to integrate in this reality in those ways. Like if that's your choice, we have free will, you can go the other way or whatever, but consciousness helps you understand what the hell's going on. So you say, if you're not conscious, how can you heal? If you're not consciously aware, how do you really know? You'll cut the person cuts across and you yell jerk, and you're not consciously aware of your intuition saying like slow down, they need compassion. Well, your consciousness starts to interact with that frequency. So the famous Tesla saying everything in life, the secrets of the universe is energy, frequency, and vibration. That's what it is. We're learning to be these like conscious interfaces, these tools of spirit for data, for information collecting, for understanding love. It's a lot. It's like many, many, many paths lead us home. For us to be conscious means, in my opinion, it's like the underlying energy in everything. If it's assimilated in a source or frequency that makes sense to you, you can go out and live it and project it. And we're seeing in the Eastern philosophies of Veda Vedanta, I did that for a long time, like crazy out there stuff. It's like you're projecting this, and you're also the observer observing the projection. So there's different levels of consciousness, different dimensions to reality. I mean, that happens in breathwork a lot. You become the witness, you become the observer. Some people will literally just like, I looking at my body. I do a class called Die Before You Die. It's a spiritual death and rebirth. And we're trying to let go of the ego to see what's left. And in that deep space, you go, okay, my conscious self, like I am, you go to the I am presence to say, I am love, I am transcendence. Or you have in the psychedelic world, journey or others, there's many other ways, you have a death experience, a near death experience. I had an ND a couple of years ago that was nothing like super crazy, but it helps you realize, holy crap, there's these conscious levels to access, and you can hear them, you can feel them, and it's not necessarily woo-woo anymore. Go down the near-death experience world, you'll see that consciousness is beyond our comprehension. And the last thing I'll say with this, and we keep going, is there's a term in the psychedelic world, the breathwork world, it's called ineffable. And I reference it a lot. Ineffable means the conscious mind cannot understand the infinite. It absolutely can't. So we go down this consciousness route. You actually, what I've learned, works for me, is you do not want to put consciousness or anything like that in a box because it limits it based on our thinking mind, the English language that's very minute compared to what you can actually express in words and tones and vibrations or whatever, and you live in the magic and mystery of the life. So we can talk with our left brain about it, but you really don't know what consciousness is and that greater awareness until it's actually sourced and felt and experienced. It's always there, but you have to create the experience for it to rise. And you go, oh, this is what it means to actually be conscious, present, grounded in my field, in my body, in my frequency. That's when the real magic happens because then you're the actual person in life that isn't the victim that says, okay, I know this game of life. They always say that, like I think of this like I'm the player, not the character. The character is Colter, but the player is the mind, the consciousness. And my favorite quote, Ram Dass, almost everyone knows Ram Dass. He's got this song that's I am loving awareness. He's like, we got to get out of our conscious thinking mind. I am loving awareness. That's a great way. Awareness is also consciousness.
I love that. My meditation that I do a little bit of um, rapé after the Wim Hof 12-minute video, the guiding breathing video that he does. And then I go into that Ram Dass meditation where he
Yeah.
says, I am loving awareness for about 10 minutes and do box breathing with that. And it is such a transcendent, like heart opening experience every single time. I'm never sorry that I do that meditation. And that's like 22 minutes. It's not hard to do. And
Mhm.
it's just so enlightening. I love that. I was listening to this near-death experience yesterday, and the woman had not shared it with anybody for 20 years because the doctor was really upset with her. The anesthesiologist was curious, but like was told not to even talk to her about it. Her husband at the time had poo-pooed the idea, oh, you were just seeing things, just shut up. And so she was like, oh, wow, people think I'm crazy. So she kept quiet. And eventually, she was talking to a friend of hers 20 years later and thought, wow, maybe I should share this with her because she was taking care of her mother. She was really sick. She was going to pass any day. And it was very comforting what she experienced.
Mhm.
And then she got interested in it because this woman was a nurse and said, there's no way you could have known that. That's very medical. It rarely happens, if ever, but that's my specialty. And you've like word for word described exactly what they do. And that's just, I believe you. And she's like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not crazy. All this time she was like shutting herself down. So she started down that rabbit hole of NDEs and found a doctor that had compiled over 10,000 of them on this website, and started reading through them. And she's like, I've got to meet this guy. And she went to go see him, and him and some other doctors were talking when she walked up, and she just stood there and listened for a minute. And they were saying, well, all of these things are are things that people experience after an NDE. And she goes, and she was like disheartened by hearing that. And she was telling someone, well, this can't be. I don't understand because I've had those things my whole life, up to the NDE. And a woman grabbed her by the arm. She said, do you know if you had an NDE when you were a child, a small child? Do you remember? And she said, I don't remember that. No. And she goes, well, you need to talk to your family. Maybe they know something you don't.
Mm,
And her mom had passed. And so she went and talked to her brother a month later and said, hey, I'm filling out these medical forms. I had the broken ankle, I had got a concussion. Do you know of anything else that I should put down? Like in a roundabout way, asking him about
mm,
this. And he said, no, 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 that's it. The next day he came to her and he said, look, I'm sorry. I should have told you years ago, but you did die when you were little. For a couple of minutes, you were gone. And she goes, oh, so all these characteristics and attributes, the empathy, the feeling, the seeing things, the hearing things, all these things that I was so scared to tell everyone about, that's experienced by all these NDEers after their experience, that makes sense now, And I was like, holy crap. So of course I had asked my best friend, ChatGPT, like,
yep.
what's a list of every single thing that people experience after an NDE? Because it's kind of got me thinking. I was like, huh. And it popped out this huge list, and I was like, oh crap. I've experienced these things. I was like, what's that about? And then I was like, okay, so when I was 17, I remember at a family reunion, I was on this swing, and it was a rope swing with a stick through the loop. And we were just trying to see how high we could get. And I remember I got really high. It was about 12 to 15 feet up. And the last thing I remembered is the stick snapping. And then I came to, and people were taping me with duct tape to a table and loading me into a Suburban to go to the nearest hospital 45 minutes away. I didn't know who I was. I had amnesia for the first 30 minutes of the drive, and things started to kind of come back in like little lights, and then memories would pop up, and I'm like, oh, wait, this is my identity.
Mm,
Oh, that's who I am. That's who these people are. Oh, okay. I'm starting to remember now, like my life experience, right? But for minutes, I was out and having seizures and couldn't breathe. And I don't
mm,
remember going anywhere or seeing anything at all. But I was like, wait, maybe it's possible that that did happen, because later in life, fast forward, like we're going to massage therapy college, and I get this weird like nudge. I was like, oh, I gotta find my buddy, And I hadn't talked to him in a long time. It was the reason I was going to massage therapy college back in like 98 up in Salt Lake City. And I went to the front desk and I said, hey, I really need to get a hold of my friend. It's an emergency. Can I please have his phone number? Like, no, 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 we don't do that. And I remember thinking for the next few hours, like, crap, I need to reach him. And it was weird how strong the sensation was, right? And totally unexplainable. Sounds out there, goofy, crazy, weird. But I ended up calling his grandfather. I looked through the phone list, and his funeral was the next day.
mm,
And I was like, oh, that's why. Showed up at the funeral, got some closure, learned a lot of beautiful things about him. Had no idea that he was suffering. None. I was like, man, isn't there just something I could have said or done? Like I could have hung out with him, and he was just right here a week ago,
mm,
and now he's gone. And certain things like that have happened throughout the years where I can't explain why. I just know things. And I'm like, I don't even tell people this stuff usually. But I thought it appropriate to share now because things like this happen. There was another time in Salt Lake City where I looked over at my wife at the time and I'm like, a tornado's going to touch down right in front of us. And she laughed at me.
mm,
And all of a sudden there was an emergency broadcast. Tornado just touched down and it was 2 miles in front of us. And she looked at me freaked out. She's like, how did you know that? And so I was like, yeah, I better just keep these things to myself. But things like this have happened over the years quite often.
Mm.
Like I'll get super drunk sometimes back in the day when I was in the oil field, and I would become clairvoyant, and people laugh, no, you were drunk. And I was like, no, it was for real. Like I knew
Wow,
things that were going
alcohol.
to happen, they
Wow.
happened, and I would just stay quiet. And I was like, huh, yeah, alcohol of all things, right?
Wow.
But I couldn't understand it. And through hearing these near-death experiences and some of the aftermath that comes through, I was like, okay, it's starting to make sense now. I'm a little more accepting of myself and those experiences, and like from birth on, I think most of us are required to learn how to judge and criticize and differentiate and have opposing opinions and ideas, and it keeps us safe, right? But then eventually later on in our adult life, we learn, oh, um, I really don't like myself. I judge myself in every, like that voice in the head you're talking about. Like, how do you quiet that down? Well, there's this thing called breath work, and Colter Smith knows how to do it. You
Mhm.
know, and so during that sit before the conference a couple weeks ago, I was just blown away. I was like, I really love myself.
Mm.
Like, wow. And it brings tears to my eyes now, but I mean, that was such an incredible experience to realize that finally after hating myself my whole life.
Wow.
And I've got this theory that really we can't project anything onto others or onto the canvas of life or live fully until we've learned how to actually love and accept the self and appreciate the self. And then in higher ways, we can then give that to others. So my question to you at this point is, what would you recommend for people who are hopeless, despondent, depressed, maybe suicidal, nihilistic? How can these people learn how to reframe things in their mind and in their body in a way that will allow them to love and accept themselves more fully so that they can then turn around and give that gift to others?
Yes. Thank you for sharing all that. It's beautiful to feel your emotion as you're saying everything too. That's like going back to the Ram Dass, we're all just walking each other home and we're learning to love each other and just a silly comment. But you said my best friend ChatGPT. I just yesterday this guy was asking ChatGPT questions and he's like, what's the point of all this? Blah blah blah. And ChatGPT at the end says, it's to love, and he or something like that. And he said, love who? And it says you. And he says, who are you? And it's like, you're loving the real you. This is you versus you. Like you're learning to love all parts of you and to come home back to your source and your center. And that's beautiful. So going along with your question, once again, multifaceted. You got to know yourself. So that's the reference point. You can kind of go, okay, you could read books, you could study, meditate. Doesn't matter if it doesn't work for you. We have our own biological slash energetic imprints. So some people go into like astrology or human design or there's some different things to help with what you are. You don't have to believe that, but there are, in my opinion, blueprints to help us understand ourselves. So you have to understand yourself, period. Why do I think this way? I would say the simple, easiest thing to start is get curious and have an open mind, period. You got to do that. You got to get beyond the limitations of your conscious thought in the moment. The whole Einstein thing of I'm going to butcher it, but you can't have what does he say? I just forgot the saying now. I was about to say it. The same frame of thought or same frame of consciousness can't solve the same frame of thought or consciousness. You have to go deeper or whatever.
Mhm.
So you have to get curious and go like, why do I do this? And hopefully you realize there's a non-judgmental part of you that doesn't have to judge. You have to realize that there are outlets. You mentioned the 12 steps. Community is the biggest thing ever. You have to get with like-minded people. We as a collective, in my opinion, are not meant to do it alone. There's something in us, empathy genes, you name it, that says, I have to find my tribe and I have to find it to where people are like-minded. Don't do it yourself. That's huge. Have the curiosity to look, learn, and then you can learn, go into deeper parts that say, okay, yoga talks a lot about non-judgment or I'm super uncomfortable in my body. I have to have a body practice. So that for me, I go absolutely bonkers if I don't have body practice. So I have a saying that I've been saying for years is like yoga solves 70% of life's problems. Because it's like, it's
I like that.
amazing. And then when I don't do yoga, it's awful or whatever. Choose
Yeah.
Tai Chi, choose working out, you name it. That's the greatest pharmacy. Next is a mental. So the mental, you can read A Course in Miracles, you can have journaling, you name it. But you have to get back to that thought of the mind of love versus peace versus the mind of chaos and ego or whatever. You have to find some way to ground and connect to that. Meditation, nature could be your God source. Go into those spaces. And then you have to have an emotional practice. So it's like, okay, I really want to heal. We've established everything's energy, everything's vibration in some way, thought, or form. So what does that mean? Go back to breath work. What's one of the big points of breath work? We're pumping in life force. We're pumping in a lot of life force and hyperoxygenating ourselves. So different chemicals happen in the body. Yeah, yeah, alkalinity, blah, blah. But what you're doing is you're moving energy in order for things to unravel and move away and to heal, let go, what you name it. So you have to have an emotional release. And interestingly enough, humor is like the greatest thing ever. So this doesn't have to be, like I used to try to be spiritual. It doesn't work. I have to meditate. It doesn't work. Like for me, it didn't work. So self-improvement. Oh, now I cringe. Go to the gym and beat yourself up just because you want muscles. My body will literally shut down now because it's more intuitive of I've struggled a lot with learning how to maintain energy and life force. And even now, 40, I'm finally realizing certain things of like, oh, I need to do this and breathe this way. And my body likes to, go on a hike instead of beat myself up. That goes back to knowing yourself. And then you have to have a spiritual practice. So I'm trying to make it easy and simple for the ones that want to learn and to go deeper. So ideally, all four: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and you can go here or there, but it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's like, okay, I can read something and be humorous. The spiritual path's unique in everyone, and that can honestly change over time, every 3, 4, 5 years or whatever it could change. The spiritual path needs to be something involving love, or I have a saying that I've been saying a lot this last year or so that says something greater wants to come through. This idea that there's always something greater and I don't know and understand it. I could be wrong. I don't care. Just something greater wants to come through. And that could be your divine intuition. So spiritual practice is learning to listen to the intuition, learning to connect with the elements. That is huge. So I have a teacher once that who was amazing. I worked with him like every other day for 7 years. It was incredible. And I asked him, if people want to understand God, if they want to understand life, like, how would they do that? And he said two things that were just like so fascinating to me, like just like so simple as fascinating. He said, first off, there's always a simple answer and then a really complex. So you can go either way. He's like, I'll give you a simple answer. One is you really got to um, understand there's something greater. So meaning like you got to give it to a higher power. He's like, when you understand that there's something greater, you can establish a connection with it. And then it's just beautiful. And then he said, no, the second thing was um, cooking, cooking and working with the elements and maybe gardening or you name it. And he goes, because everything's elements, everything's energy. And when you cook, for instance, that becomes your being, your sustenance, and you're creating community and harmony. So people pray with their food or whatever. You're creating a cohesive or coherent interface with life itself. And you're understanding that, oh, you're the God source, you're the life force inside yourself, not a victim, not opposed, not in society's, matrix or whatever. And it becomes this symbiotic relationship. So he was talking a lot about that. So your spiritual practice could be, I just want to love life more, love something bigger. I don't even know what the hell that means, but you open up the dialogue. And last thing I can say more, but it's like this day and age, I do a lot of groups now. I just was at a men's group last week. People are massively struggling with social media. They're struggling with dopamine addiction in many, many forms. And it's your consciousness slash mind is getting hijacked. You're not able to think for yourself anymore. So having this like holy shit moment where if I don't get back to understanding who I am, my own thoughts, my own belief systems, algorithms are going to take over. You're never going to feel bored. And when you're bored, you have imagination and you can create in your mind. Your consciousness is hijacked. So, 4 day fast, digital detox, go in the woods, reset, because we don't have in the Western world initiation rites usually. You know, a lot of cultures do. But what's initiation rite into becoming a man or a woman? What does it mean to be a father or a mother? And you go, a couple of years ago, one of the greatest things I ever did was a chaos to clarity course with this shaman dude. 3 weeks we prepared to go into the woods by ourselves, no technology, and we did a death ritual. And we fasted for 3 days or 4 days. I went 4 days. Unbelievable, Pete, like unbelievably intense because you got back to your nature, your rhythm, your element, you felt, and then you go back into the marketplace, into the world, and you integrate and you see kind of what you're made of. So this might get people overwhelmed or might get people excited to say, okay, there's avenues every which way imaginable. And there's breath work and yoga and you name it just for many, many effects of depression and going and hitting the weights. Can't do that. There's other things, talk therapy, connection. But it's ultra, ultra important to be like, A, I'm gonna have a plan, and B, I'm gonna really learn about myself and connect through humans because this is a divine resonance. I'm projecting onto you what I love and what I hate in myself. And
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
when we start to really understand this is like a game of life, it gets a little bit more exciting and you don't have to take it so seriously.
Yeah, it's just a game. Let's play. Let's have some fun. You were talking about humor as being such a great spiritual tool, and my wife is probably the funniest person I know, honestly. I just am blown away by her humor and her wit, and she is just so quick. And my kids, when we first were dating, thought she was the coolest thing ever. Within 2 months, they told me, Dad, look, if you mess this up with her, we're leaving and we're gonna go with her.
Yeah. You're out. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, okay, and man, I agree. I was super serious, overly so, pretty much my whole life. And when she brought humor into our home and I saw my kids light up, I was like, what have we been missing all these years? This is awesome. What a great way to live. And we just
Mhm.
laugh so much now. And it's my favorite thing. I love humor. Um,
Yeah, I just listened to a podcast yesterday and then I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said, if you want to really hit a deep truth with somebody that may rock the boat a little bit, the best thing to do is get them in a happy state or a humorous state, and then you tell them the truth or whatever, because they're just more open to it. I'm like, "Oh, I like that."
that is a great tool, and that's true. That is true. If you're already somber and serious, and then you hear that, well, screw you.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you listened to the Be Here Now network with Ram Dass's talks, and he's got Alan Watts on there and all these great spiritual leaders? That was interesting. We were talking about food and preparing it, and there was a story I remember his guru had specially selected cooks that were the only ones that were allowed to prepare his food. And they would infuse all of their life energy, their love into the food. And one day he ate some of this food and he just got violently ill, was throwing up everywhere, and said, "Round up the crew, get them all here right now." Like, who prepared this food? And there was one guy that was subbing for someone that wasn't able to make it that day. And Ramdas was watching all of this and he's like, oh my God, energy is that important? It just blew his mind. And then the story about him giving his Neem Karoli Baba, his guru, like 3 times as much LSD as was good for even an elephant, let alone a human, right?
And
And
nothing happened.
exactly. And he
Yeah.
said he's just always high no matter what. And he, from what I understand, was able to fully align with consciousness, with true self, with God source, whatever you want to call it, like at all times. And he was yelling and screaming at people and calling them names, but it was all in love and fun. And people came from all over the world just to rub his feet or just to be in his presence. And he would literally send fruit to people, through their family members, and they would heal or die, you know. And but it was all perfect. And he said, "Don't you see, Ram Dass? It's all perfect."
Yeah. And one thing that what you said reminded me of something that I thought of years ago when I was doing a shamanic journey for myself. And it was this idea of you could hear those stories and go, A, it's BS, live in the logical brain, or B, live in the magic and mystery. And this idea of like healing through food and energy, I mean, I tell you lots of stories about that. Yes, energy transference is a million% real and transfers in every form imaginable. But if you go and you say, wow, that's fascinating. I don't know how that works, but I'm going to be conscious of it. And you can live in the magic of life and say, oh, I can send you love. Like, what does that mean? Like, Pete's working to open up his heart, to enter into a more pure state of unconditional love. Okay, Pete, but I'm going to send this love to you, and then they're maybe open to feel it, and they go, oh, there is maybe resonance. I just want to bring that up because it's like living in the magic and mystery, whatever we talk about, and you hear these fanatical stories. I've listened to almost all of them over 20 years, all that stuff. And I just said, okay, I'm going to be fascinated. I'm going to be fascinated with it and see what that feels like and to get curious. I talked to a friend recently. I said, if you saw a magician and you were blown away, and he said, okay, at the end, you can go in the back and I'll tell you how it all works. It's not magic. I'll just show you how it works. Would you want to know? And I sat there because I contemplated that. I asked him that, but I was sitting with it and going, I want to live in the magic and mystery. In some ways, I don't really care what it works or like whatever. So how does it feel? How does it feel to know that there's a guy out there that Ram Dass claims that happens and Ramana Maharshi and all that stuff? How does it feel to know that, you could have an LSD-like experience on breathwork? No, that doesn't work. No, try it. It might work. You might go into some magical spaces. It's all that magic and mystery, and the life is not meant to be so serious and silly human.
Yeah. It is a choice, just like we choose optimism or pessimism or negativity and positivity. I mean, every single thought and action and word is a choice. And we need to take responsibility for all of it because we are 100% responsible for the lives we're creating through our thinking, our speaking, and through everything that we do to or
And
for others.
And guess what? You wouldn't want it any differently. One of the things I would say, going back to that person that is challenged or that needs help, depression or whatever. One thing is to realize that you are the cause of and solution to all of your life's problems, and you wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you forget that you have the choice. That's something that hit me hard a few years ago. Well, you say, I wouldn't choose to be depressed. Well, no. You say depression is a choice? No, don't get me wrong. You always have to remember that there's a choice to change, a choice to look at something differently, a perspective. Observer creates the reality. You're rendering something different. You have to remember that there's a choice. That's why I use that term. There's something greater wants to come through. The choice in life through the free will and through the natural neutral laws of the universe, which is that's a whole different subject too. It allows you to experience life as you want it to be, sometimes unintended, but that's what you need maybe in that form. And the
Mm.
healing aspect, if you want to get into this, is the more I've learned about healing in my personal life too, is healing's not the love and light all the time. It's not the spiritual bypassing or whatever. It can be like those higher states. It's actually going into the darkness and going into the repressed emotions and feelings that are unconscious, that aren't of the light. So it's a pendulum. The more you go into the darkness, the more light is. The more you go into the light, the more darkness is. Because what's unconditional love, just like we talked about with the Kundalini. Kundalini rises, absolutely, but it burns away what isn't love, what isn't balance and harmony. That's true love too. So you say, I want to love somebody unconditionally. Well, universe through conscious interface says, okay, Pete, let's do this. And you got to have the awareness to go, okay, I can always choose unconditional love, or else it can be overwhelming for you. Interesting.
And make no mistake, if you ask for a blessing or a gift, you're going to get it, but not in the ways you want.
Careful, careful. No.
For sure. I think it's important at this point. before we go into energy transfer, I want to hear more about that. But um, I've often, through Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza, come across a lot of information that one thought that we think instantaneously infuses and injects into our human body, into the bloodstream directly, hormones and chemicals in accordance to that thought. And if we wanted to change those hormones and chemicals, we could think the opposing thought. But if we're in a rut and all we're thinking are thoughts that are really dark, or like hopelessness and fear, and we're anxiety ridden, we're scared, we're angry all the time, we're full of rage, we're going to have chemicals and hormones in the body that are in alignment with those thoughts.
Mhm.
And we can literally become addicted to that chemical cocktail within us. And so thinking the opposite is almost like getting cold water splashed on you. It's like, whoa, that's shocking. That was so uncomfortable. I'm going to go back to this chemical cocktail and these methods of thinking that make me feel comfortable. And the slow, steady shift into positivity and thinking different thoughts can slowly shift the inner chemistry. But I don't think that it's wise or possible to go from some extreme addiction to just bam, I'm off of that now. Oh, look at me, I'm so strong. I mean, in my experience anyway, on the Good in the Head website, there's a challenge that I put out. It's called my daily perspective shift. And if you can slowly, day by day, take a topic off of there and just think about that one topic and shift your beliefs surrounding that topic just a little bit, the whole rest of the day, it's almost like the universe proves it to be true to you. Like everything we think, we have this bias detector, and everything that's in opposition to what we think or how we think is just off the table entirely. Like the reticular activating system will only allow in that which supports our ego's belief system. And to slowly shift and upgrade beliefs is to introduce a new chemical cocktail through our thinking into the body, which we then become more comfortable with over time. And so the work is not easy, and it's meandering. It takes years sometimes. But I think it's possible for even the most depressed and hopeless person in the world to be able to slowly experience through thinking alone higher realms of consciousness. But there are so many tools, just like breath work, and meditation, that will just get us there so much quicker. And it's like I realized this over all these years and did all this work and writing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have just gone to a breath work session or started meditating, and it would have been so much quicker and easier. So back to your beginning journey. How did you get into meditation, and what was that like for you? Like,
Mm.
what was your first meditation like, and then how did it expand and grow from there to become what it is today?
I had a very, what I would call metaphysical couple experiences when I was 21 or 22. And the best way I can describe it when, I tried to meditate here and there before, but it just, it doesn't go far. But I just had this one experience. I was listening to the Abraham Hicks, law of
Mhm.
attraction stuff, and I was like taking it in. I don't know how, just feeling it. And I was 21 or 22, and I started to feel energy, and I
Wow.
started to feel in and around me. And now that's nothing in the sense of, that's no big deal now. But back then, what the heck's going on? And I started to feel more than what was normal. And I didn't tell hardly anybody for a while, but that's when I started to have a couple experiences that felt kind of out of body, but you're just feeling like there's things around me, and like my heart, like whoa, my heart, like what's that type of thing. And that led me to like trying to find the shamans and the mystics and the people that are like, what the heck's going on? And then I read religious books and all that. And
Huh.
then meditation.
So those experiences then inspired you to go seeking shamans and mystics. What was that like? Where were they? How did you find them?
I live in Phoenix, so thankfully there's a lot. I started going to meetup groups. I went to a few that were just amazing. I had a couple synchronous experiences, a little challenging to explain the whole thing, but
Mhm.
basically people were telling me the same thing over and over. I'm like, what the? Either they're all conspiring or there's something here. And I was like, this is amazing. And, so I just opened up my mind and said, let's learn what's under the meat suit, under the surface. That's when meditation got pretty fun to me. And it's evolved because, like I said, me being spiritual, trying to be spiritual doesn't work anymore. So you say, I'm going to sit there for 20 minutes. It doesn't work for me anymore. I have to like move around. I have to stretch. I have to like be in the world. When my body's relaxed, okay, now you can meditate, to go into those deeper spaces.
Nice. So almost now it's like your whole life is a meditation.
You try to be, and one thing that brought this up with what you were just talking about, and I forget the exact word that you were saying, but my mind went to A Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
And it's recent because I've just been thinking about it a lot. The book talks about what's a miracle. It's a change in perspective.
Mm.
That's all it is. And so you're talking about one word each day to change a perspective, a frequency, or one activity to slowly change your mindset and change your energy flow, or one simple form of meditation to find the conscious awareness between the thoughts and the action. You're changing the perspective. So just like the choice, you have a choice of awareness, and you have the choice to see things for what they are, maybe not as they seem, because you hit it big. Like, okay, we can go the really easy way of explaining this or the really hard way. The really hard way is like, okay, we got a brain, and the brain has an identity, and it's gonna fight tooth and nail to keep its identity, and it's gonna have massive cognitive dissonance because the worst thing ever is to tell people you've been lied to or you had a lie for 20, 30, 40 years, and then your whole identity is unraveled. That's freaking hard to
Mm.
heal that way, or you realize the simple way, and maybe not simple, but easier way to explain is the Tony Robbins style thing where anything in life you've literally just created more pain than pleasure or more pleasure than pain. And you got to find a way that says it's more painful to stay this way than to change. You got to get out of the gray zone. And that's hard for people to look at. And that's hard for people to say, okay, I messed up, or I am 40 now and I, I did not do well in life, or blah, blah, blah. What do you do? I always fall back to forgiveness. Forgiveness is always, always, always the answer. And if you don't know how to forgive, forgive the parts of you that don't know how to forgive.
Mm.
Jonathan Parker talks about that a lot, one of my teachers now. And this idea that there's something to always love, something to always find it, get curious and find it inside of you through meditation, through breath work. You will touch the divine and go into the sacred always, especially through the heart. The heart's the gateway to everything. That's the purity space. That's the Christ consciousness.
Wow. So things like a gratitude practice, just looking around and seeing the beauty in everything that surrounds you, nature, a human, a smile, um, appreciation. Like there was a woman, Brooke Castillo, that was on stage one time, and she had this woman come up. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a hairdresser. Oh, cool. Do you love it? She goes, oh, yeah, I love my clients. But our manager, she just, like once a year, she'll, like take us all out for a steak dinner, and that's her form of appreciation. But none of us want that. We just want a little daily, like, hey, great job, guys. We want to be appreciated. She doesn't appreciate us. And she goes, well, wait a minute. She spends her own money, hundreds of dollars, taking you guys out for a steak dinner every Christmas. You don't feel appreciated? She goes,
Mhm.
well, that's nice and everything, but we just want to be appreciated. Like, good job. That
Yeah.
how hard is that? And she goes, give me your phone. And she typed into her phone an alarm to go off every afternoon. It was called self-appreciation. Right.
Hmm.
And she goes, when's the last time you appreciated yourself for anything? And the woman just starts sobbing. She goes,
Yeah.
never.
They
I
figured out,
never.
she figured out her love
Uh,
language.
yeah, exactly. And now she can do that for herself instead of expecting others to do it. Like expectations are nothing but premeditated resentments. And we're setting ourselves up for failure and disconnect with others when we aren't expressing what we need. And if they can't give it anyway, then we need to realize that, hey, that's our job to do that for ourselves, or find community that can do it. You spoke about community, which was brilliant. Um, Finding community is really important. If you can't find one, make one. That's why I created Good in the Head. Like, hey, been there. I've been suicidal. I've had some attempts. I get how you feel, why you're feeling that way, and there's a way out. You're
Mhm.
not alone. That's the message. You were talking about energy transference earlier, and you said you had some really cool stories about that. Like that friend you haven't even thought about in 10 years. You think about them, and 5 minutes later, they're calling or texting you. It's like, what the hell? What's that about? Like what kind of experiences have you had? And can you tell us a little bit more about energy transference?
Sure. The one thing that pops in my head, because you just said friend, I mean, my best friend in high school, um, after a while, we didn't talk for, I'm guessing, 3 years or so, and we used to run together. And I went running one night in Phoenix, and I felt insane, overwhelming love, like for him and for having a good friend in high school. I was euphoric. I had this runner's high. I was thinking about him like for an hour straight. Next day, he calls me, "Hey, we need to connect." And this was after like 3 years. And you go, okay, everyone's had that. Everyone's had something like that some way. Well, the good news is in this 21st century, we're learning that there is a quantum interface, that there is a quantum field. Everything's connected some way, somehow. And quantum entanglement, says particles together are always together and whatnot. So what we're realizing is through Bruce Lipton and Greg Braden and all those amazing people that we're in a conscious interface reality and through levels and layers laws of the universe, structures, micro cosmic webs, you name it.
Mm.
It's all connected. And so you'll have those synchronicities. You'll have the times where it's all like clicking, or you'll have the deja vu or whatever, and you're realizing, oh my God, this is just energy interacting with energy. And on a day-to-day basis, many, many examples of that, but just, just the energy vampires, the people that suck your life force, like, oh, what happened to it? Like the energy moved, and did it go to them? Maybe did it leave or whatever? Or did it alter? Did it morph? Well, energy's transferring, and so you go in a room and somebody's super happy, and you're like, dang, that's amazing. I want to be like them, and I get happy. Whether it's happening in your source or whatever, it's energy transference over and over and over. And I like to think of this is going a little metaphysical, but from what I've learned and personal experience that I like to believe, but find your own belief, is we are in this neutral, loving universe. And the loving universe won't hurt you, but it will allow you to hurt if you choose. That makes sense. So it's so loving, it lets you choose your own source almost, the source of love or the source of pain. And in that, there are universal laws, meaning natural and neutral sources. Um, and what that means is you have the perspective to choose you have the awareness, the ability to choose the perspective and an awareness of your choice. you know, they're cutting down the rainforest. That's the worst thing ever, or it's the best thing ever because people are finally going to wake up that we're killing ourselves. You name it. Fear is the greatest destroyer, or it's the greatest motivator. Everything's neutral. And so energy will transfer based on the frequency that you embody. And when you embody the frequency that you choose, law of attraction, connection, things will work. Much more and work in a sense of they're gonna flow together. Now it all depends on how much work you've done, because like we've already talked about before, so much love can come in and it transfer into you through a breath work, through psychedelics, through you name it. But guess what it hits? All the parts that aren't love, because it needs to shake it up.
Mhm.
So I think we get a law of attraction a little bit, not, I'm not going to say wrong, but sometimes people think of it differently. It's the parts of us that need to feel the love. And the energy transference is everything. Through the food, I had that experience. My old roommate had the experience where, he felt the pain of this cook. It's really a fascinating story, but you just realize, yeah, we're transferring hate, love, passion, energy, all of it, all the time, no matter what you're listening to me right now, you're listening to you and your beautiful dialogue, and you're loving it, or you're getting triggered, or you're getting something, and it's transferring into you through the quantum field. Are we doing it to you? No, absolutely not. So that the energy transference has to understand, in my opinion, this is a projection. My world is different than yours. It is. Our realities are different. We're in this quantum collective dream, but your reality is your reality, my reality is my reality. And in the intuitive world, what I've learned, like the good people that are like the good coaches or the good people that help you walk to your own truth, they literally can't tell you what to do. I mean, they can give you advice, but it's your own truth. It's like you can say what you want, but it's ultimately your truth. And what they're ultimately trying to do is to help you understand what you already know. That's the biggest thing is you have to understand what you already know. And when we deal with quantum interface, energy exchange, you name it, there has to create what's called feedback loops. So in a bad psychedelic journey, for instance, you're thinking the same thing over and over and over, and you can't get out of it. That's a bad biofeedback. That's a big feedback loop. If you can go to a different loop, you loop it in, that creates the resonance. And some people I've read, they don't even think you have a personality. You just have a system, an interface that works on repetitive patterns.
Mhm.
And the energy transference can help or hurt that. So you could look at it, everything's energy, everything's vibration. Last thing I'll say with this is, in breath work, I've heard this amazing amount of times that people say you become the vibration, you become the energy, you become the awareness. And then it goes even deeper where you're going into these realities that are beyond the conscious waking state and you're in the quote unquote dream world, but that feels much more real than here. And so you're going,
Wow.
oh, number one, okay, we're potentially like dreaming that I'm Coulter, that you're Pete, and there's another reality that we can interface with, like Manly P. Hall and some of those really amazing thought leaders. They realize imagination is all that. That's like the fifth or sixth dimension or whatever. It's creation always from a different reality. And the point of this game of life is to be like, okay, how can I have a thought of imagination and bring it into this reality and live it because it's exciting. But if we understand that there are things stacked against us in corporations and bad people and governments, we could see that as a deterrent, or we could see this as, oh my God, there's so much resistance to help me grow and build this game of life, beautiful, terrible, and wonderful at the same time. It's worth living and it's worth expressing and exploring.
That's exciting. The movie The Secret by Rhonda Byrne kind of woke me up at the very start of my own journey to things like the law of attraction or imagination, projection, creating a new life. And how many times have we heard people say, like, oh my gosh, I just realized that I'm living something that I dreamed or dreamt about and thought about over and over for a month. And now it's all come true. Like in our last home, we were just about to move to the house we're in now. And it was our first home that we were purchasing together, and my wife was packing things up. She was emptying my desk in the office and she said, huh, is this your gratitude list? And I'm like, well, let me see that. I don't know what you're talking about because I do my gratitude list every day I wake up in my mind. And in 2014, when I got off all those meds, started listening to Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and different people that were empowering. They had said, well, write down your dream life and every aspect of that, and think about that, meditate on it. And what do you want? We all know what we don't want. That's easy. But write a list of what you do want. And I was like, I want home. I want to work at Boeing. I want a job with that company. I want my bills paid. I want to have no credit card debt. Bam, 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 bam. And I looked at the list and I was like, I guess it's my gratitude list now. Every one of those things were checked
You
off and
did
I was
it.
mind blown.
Wow.
I stuck it in a drawer and 3 years later, here it comes out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell's going on? And I work at Boeing. Like we're debt free besides, our car and our home and
Yep.
all these things. I don't know how it worked, but it did, like shifting a timeline almost or something. Like
Sure.
you write down what you do want and you're so like authentic and honest about it, and then just put it away and don't think about it. Well, that's in your subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind will work to see the things that will make these dreams come true. And I'm just glad I worked because
Yeah.
now it's like, well, time for a new list. Let's see what else we can create.
Yeah, and one of the things that you did well, probably unconsciously, was you left the interpretation open in terms of
Mm,
how it came, why it came, or this idea of I want to be, successful or whatever, and you put it down and you're like, okay, I'm going to keep going, whatever. That's one thing we haven't talked on that I've learned for 20 years or more than 20 years now that has helped me that it's learning the right interpretation. And you could say that's God's interpretation, love's interpretation, whatever. So you put all those things in paper and said, okay, I want all this. And maybe I'll set it, forget it, or maybe I'll visualize it or whatever. But if you allow it to come in ways that are unseen or unanswered prayers, usually that's where the power is because in my opinion, life is like time is not linear. That's one aspect of the dimensions, but there's circular and energies and time and you name it. You go into that world, and then you see per relativity and perspective, 2 years later, oh, I did do what I said I was going to do. That was amazing. And I left the interpretation, the energy to be created in the way it was, or the way what it needed to be. I find that very fascinating because who are you giving the interpretation to? You giving it to the ego or to God or to this trusting in yourself with unconditional love, no expectations. That is massively challenging.
mhm.
That's where the freedom lies in the pure potentiality of what can be created.
Wow, well said. Greg Braden recently came out on the Joe Rogan show, and he's someone that kind of blew my mind. One day he said that consciousness informs itself through its creations. And I thought about that for days, and eventually came to the thought, hey, what better way for consciousness as one entity to inform itself with limitless feedback than to infuse itself into trillions of life experiences simultaneously. And in that thought, I was like, we really are one. I started treating my dog better. I started
Mhm.
talking to rocks. And I was like, man, am I crazy? What's going on?
I love that.
But that was an eye opener. Blew my mind because that one thing that he said, I was like, I, for some reason, could not get that out of my head for nothing. It was unreal. On Joe Rogan, he did talk about a lot of different things. History. He had days he could have spent with Joe Rogan, and Joe was such an incredible listener, and he's got such an open mind. He's got all these fabulous guests, thousands of them,
Mhm.
and he, in my opinion, is just such a great example of humaning. He's very well versed in biohacking. He's got this beautiful morning routine. He's got this life he's created that's just incredible. And he's inspired so many millions of people. Me, my boys, everybody I know, I'm just so grateful that
Yeah,
there are
but
people like you
mm,
and like him and like all these podcasters sharing what they've learned. And this is empowering information. If we're curious, we have an open mind and we can lean into it instead of trying to remain in the egoic identity. The potential for expansion and life experiences is completely, it's just limitless what we can do and feel and create and think. It's so exciting.
agree. It's worth it.
It is.
Life is worth it.
It is. Um, what kinds of things do you do that people can connect with you through? I know that you got a place in Tempe where you do things periodically. Can you explain more about that and how people can come in and what they can expect to experience?
Sure. So there's the in-person and online. If you go to my website, coltersmith.com, Colter, smith.com, that's my personal website. And probably my biggest passion in this world is the group experiences. So I do a lot of those. So I'll do 5 to 10 a month, depending, and then some retreats and deeper wellness events. So if you're in the Phoenix area, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe, Mesa, always doing classes. Like for instance, this month I'm doing with 4 different people, different experiences: yoga, breathwork and hot breathwork and cacao, like all these different ways to connect to you. So you're in the Phoenix area, go on that site, a meetup group. Find it on Eventbrite, Facebook, Colter Smith, Instagram, Colter Smith 30. You can follow, and there's just lots of offerings. So there's some are different. Next month there's a two different heart awakening workshops where we're going into more of the healing components and going into the purity of the heart. There's some other ones that are all about getting into the sacred soul, the essence of yourself. So you want to connect that way. And then online, if you don't live in Phoenix, I do the Zoom breathworks and kind of going customizing sacred self experiences. So that can mean a little different to different people, but it's always breathwork. And, you know, I call it like retrieving your soul essence, like remembering and going back into love. That could be different in different forms, but doing that online, and I think that's it. Then find me a fun psychedelic experiences like you did or whatever.
Let's see, this address 5030 South Mill Avenue in Tempe, the Shrine of Holy Wisdom. What is that?
That's a beautiful spiritual church with a like a Catholic background, but it's like a very spiritual church, and I've just been doing classes there for 7 years, I think. And I just like it because it's a very spiritual space. So a lot of classes are done there just because of the energy. The person that owns it is phenomenal. And it just it captures that set and setting really well of people that want that more of a spiritual experience. So that's why I go there.
Awesome. I was looking online, and do you have something going on tomorrow? I know today is like the 17th of October. Um,
Yes. Yeah, some classes tomorrow, breath of life, normal breath work, but with beautiful music. I play about 12, 15 instruments depending upon the class. Take you on a spiritual extrasensory experience. Sunday's a death and rebirth, more of a shamanic style. So not very many people signed up just yet this weekend. It's a slow weekend, so tell everyone.
yeah, I just reposted that. I didn't know if it was an older date or if it actually is tomorrow. It's from like 2 to 4.
Yeah.
That
And
was
then
one thing I
there's a
remember,
lot.
like all the different instruments you use. My eyes were closed the whole time. I don't have any idea what you were using, but each one of them brought out a different type of a vision or a feeling, and
Yep.
it was big. It was bigger than me, and I experienced so much and every different noise or sound that came by while the playlist that was so beautiful was playing in the background during the breathing session. It was mind blowing.
You
Uh,
became the vibration.
Yeah. Anytime you have anything that's public that you want to share, send it to me and I'll put it out there too. I mean, I got a bunch of friends that are into this stuff and I really want to try and talk some family members and my wife into coming tomorrow. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. Do we need to just like say interested and show up or how does it work?
You can just show up. Yeah.
Yes.
There's, like I said, it's a super slow weekend, so I'm hoping more people sign up. But if you don't make it this week, I think I have 7 or 8 classes in the next month. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
some ones with the Shamanic Society, Psychedelic Society, Shamanic Breathwork and Hape. That's one that you would really, really, really like. So if you want to go to any of them, I would recommend that one for you.
And that's on Sunday?
No, that one is in I think 3 weeks or something.
Okay, I'll
So
have to keep my eye out for that.
that one
Um,
I think you'd really like.
One thing that I thought about pretty much every day since that session we did with you a couple weeks ago was, do you have a video like with guided meditation on YouTube available to people to go check out or utilize on a regular basis? I was like, man, I would love to do this like every single day, at least once a week on a Sunday morning or something.
Good question. I personally don't. I have some talks on there, but not much personally. Um, I have a huge playlist on YouTube. It's called Breathwork, and there's like 30 of them where I go down the list. I'm like, okay, let's do Wim Hof. Okay, let's do XPT breath with Laird Hamilton, the pro surfer, and that's how I do it every day because it's not always the same for me. And like, oh, there's breathwork beats, and then there's the ones that are a little bit longer, and then there's the one with the breath holds. I mean, it's everywhere now. Breathwork is the new yoga, and it is beyond blown up. I told a friend when I started in Phoenix doing these and had no clue what I was doing 12 years ago, I found, I think, 2 other people doing it.
Hmm.
I think if I had to guess, just in Phoenix, just like 80 now. I don't know. I have no idea, maybe more. It's insane. So you can find it anywhere and everywhere. You can do it every day. Just find the playlist, find all that. I just don't have the online for that myself, but eventually I might go that route.
And on YouTube, it's just it's Colter Smith.
Yeah, and easy to look up, I think, Colter Smith. Yep.
Okay. I think this is a really empowering new movement and practice that people are stepping into and realizing just how powerful it is. And it's exciting to see.
Mhm. What can you do in an hour or two that transforms people that quickly, that powerfully? I personally don't know much more, and that's why I do it.
I love it, man. So, if you could, before we close, state your purpose in life right now, currently, because it's always changing.
Yes, I thought about this a lot. So I put it in the context of my purpose of life is to awaken myself and help others do the same. And what I mean by awakening is opening up to the love of self, the love of life, the connection to other people, and to awaken to the parts of me that need to be felt, seen, and heard, and to be the best human possible, and then help others do the same. We're all on different paths, but it's the same but different. So my purpose in life is to understand who I am and be the best version, whatever that means. And then more recently than anything, I really sat with this a few months ago and I said, okay, if I died, what would I quote unquote regret? If there's regrets in the afterlife, I don't know. You look
Hmm.
back and go, dude,
Yeah.
oh, I just died. And it hit me hard. I didn't enjoy this life as much as I could.
Mm.
And it hit me. I was like, oh, I want to enjoy life. So purpose of life, to enjoy it. And when you're in these deeper healing arts or whatever, you can feel pain and still be okay with it. You can see suffering and, quote, are you enjoying it? No, probably not. But there's a purpose to it all, and you see the beauty in it. You see the pain, the suffering leads to an awakening of some way, or somebody is really hurting and they come to heal and they go to a breathwork class and the pain was the catalyst to heal. So it goes back to that perspective of we don't know everything, and I would just love to live in the magic and mystery of life and to really enjoy it. So that's my mission.
I love that. Now, before we do close, is there anything else that you would like to say? What would your message be to the world? And are there any topics that we didn't cover that you would like to?
Sure. Message to the world. I thought about this a lot too, especially if I had like 5 minutes to talk to anybody. I did like if you'd have a loudspeaker to the whole world and you say, okay, you got 5 minutes. What would you say? Oh, shoot. Well, my mind goes to you're much more than you think you are. You're much more capable than you probably believe. And there's deeper, grander, greater parts of you that are meant to be understood and they're yet to be discovered. And I would explain that it's not selfish to go understand yourself and go inward and go into the truth and the love of the heart and the soul, get curious. And I would say the more you get that, the more you're guided. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to comprehend. Life can be inevitable in the ways that don't make sense, but that's also the beauty. The beauty is in the letting go for the remembrance to happen. The beauty is in the frequency that needs to happen in the perfect time. And you, the person that is, trying to understand it all, it doesn't have to. Life can be a maybe in absolutely everything. Is this good or bad? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm going to have full faith and trust because it's better than not having hope, faith, and trust. Whether it's in a certain religion or a certain philosophy, it doesn't matter. Choose your destiny. Choose this space that says, I'm here. I might as well understand, might as well discover what the hell this is all about and eliminate unnecessary pain and suffering. Not eliminate pain and suffering, but unnecessary pain and suffering. So you can kind of have this quote unquote fulfilling life, whatever that means to you. Get curious and figure out what the heck that means. And then eventually, God, love, the Holy Spirit, it takes you over. And your body is a vessel to help the Holy Spirit, to help love. And you get that feeling of we're all connected, we're just doing the good deed and spreading the love and awareness. You're just a channel and a vessel, and you realize, oh, this is never personal. This is something much greater than who I really think I am. God, love is working through me in ways that are beyond amazing, and I love it. That's what I would say.
Well said. That is
Mhm.
beautiful. Thank you.
Yep.
Um, Any suggestions for a book list for people to read to the things that have interested you the most?
It's changed a lot over the years.
Mm.
So if you say book list, my mind just like, oh my God, oh my God, you could go to so many different places. I'll reference this just because it's easier for me to realize. So go back 20 years ago when you're in this learning about metaphysics, spirituality, consciousness. I really loved a lot of books like Conversations with God and Many Lives, Many Masters and the Abraham Hicks books. I kind of got out there because I want to expand my mind.
Mhm.
So good, those types of books that maybe are a little just out there. I do like the Greg Bradens of the world, the Joe Dispenzas. So Becoming Supernatural, that type of book where he has the science and the metaphysics. That would be really huge because most people need left brain and right brain. I love the yogic philosophy. Like I mentioned before, I got into Veda Vedanta and all these different ways of like trying to see life from a bigger perspective. So I'd recommend the classics like Bhagavad Gita and like those types of things, but the ones that speak to your soul. So you want to find these books that are even like the Bible, like it can speak to your soul and the deeper metaphors and all that. I would recommend those types of books because too much analytics doesn't work. Too much right brain way out there is not grounded. I'd find those books that speak to your heart. And recently, I haven't been reading much, but I've just been finding a lot online of Course in Miracles and learning from Jonathan Parker about, he's got some books that are phenomenal. It's merging with the soul, integration with the divine in ways that work for you. So there's more, but I think that's a good one. That's a good way of saying it.
Uh, A Course of Miracles has come up quite a few times in this interview. I've got a copy of A Course in Miracles, a manual for teachers. I mean, I bought this huge, thick 3 volume set and I haven't even touched it. So you're inspiring me to get to work. Thank you.
Welcome. It's difficult but worth it to
Uh,
understand.
Yeah, there's so much out there that is just beautiful. And I want to acknowledge you today. I thank you for your time. Your mind is incredible. The way that you share things is awesome. Your humor, I love your laugh. Uh, I can tell you're a good man with a good soul and a great purpose. And I really love what we've been able to discuss here today. Thank you very much.
Hey, it goes back to how you started with the breath work. Hour 15 felt like 3 minutes. We've gone 2 hours and 10 minutes or whatever, and it did not feel like that because we were in flow.
Yeah,
Held the energy well, and great questions, great lead-in. So it was a pleasure.
likewise. Oh, hey, have you heard of the book by Stephen Kotler called The Rise of Superman?
Mm-mm.
It's all about flow, and it's got nothing but like incredible stories about these people that have all these near-death experiences as athletes, and they talk so much about like flow and what it is and how to get into it naturally, and it's a really good read. It's so easy to read it.
Beautiful.
But well, hey, I appreciate your time again, and for anybody out there that is looking for something new and different and very powerful, I highly recommend checking out Colter Smith. Follow him, look at some of his stuff, attend some of his breathwork courses and the things that he does. Like he said, he's in the valley. Just show up and check it out.
Yeah,
Thank you for what you do.
put some links down below.
Yeah, yeah, will do.
Find it. Yeah.
Hey, man, keep kicking ass, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Pete, and see you soon. Bye bye.